Which players are going to dominate during the Australian Open this year? Nearly a fortnight from now, the 2023 Australian Open will take center stage as tennis attention shifts for a few weeks to Australia. Tennis fans can watch the Australian Open every year at Melbourne Park in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. The competition is the first in the 4 tennis Grand Slam competitions held annually, coming before the French Open, Wimbledon, and US Open. The Australian Open begins in the middle of January and lasts for 2 weeks, coinciding with the Australia Day holiday. It includes wheelchair, legends, and exhibition events in addition to men's and women's singles, men's, women's, and mixed doubles, junior championships, and men's and women's singles. Novak Djokovic has the most Australian Open men's singles titles of all time with 9. Before 1988, it was played on grass courts, but since then, 3 types of hard court surfaces have been used. Green-colored rebound, Ace Up to 2007. Blue plexi cushion from 2008 to 2019. And blue-green set since 2020. The Australian Open, which was first held in 1905 as the Australasian Championships, has developed into one of the biggest sporting occasions in the Southern Hemisphere. With more than 812,000 spectators expected for the 2020 Australian Open, also known as the Happy Slam, it is the most well-attended Grand Slam competition. With its 3 main courts located in Rod Laver Arena, John Cain Arena, and the renovated Margaret Court Arena, which all had retractable roofs, it was also the first Grand Slam competition to offer indoor play during inclement weather or intense heat. The 2020 Australian Open contributed $387.7 million to the Victorian economy, and over the previous 10 years, the Australian Open had contributed more than $271 billion in economic benefits to Victoria and created 1,775 jobs for the state, with the majority of these jobs being in the sectors of lodging, hotels, cafes, and trade services. The Australian Open was first held at the Warehousemen's Cricket Ground in Melbourne in November 1905 and is now managed by Tennis Australia, formerly the Lawn Tennis Association of Australia, LTAA. It was a grass court and is now called the Albert Reserve Tennis Centre. The Australian Championships was the name of the competition at first. In 1927, it was renamed the Australian Championships. The Australian Open was later established in 1969. In 5 Australian cities, Melbourne 66 times, Sydney 17 times, Adelaide 15 times, Brisbane 7 times, and Perth 3 times, as well as 2 in New Zealand, Christchurch 1906 and Hastings 1905. It has been performed 110 times since 1905. The Grand Slam competition in 2022 wasn't without drama, as Novak Djokovic was deported from Australia before he even touched the ball. Rafael Nadal eventually won the singles competition, setting a new record, while Ash Barty of Australia won her final match before an unplanned early retirement. Many more storylines seem destined to be written as the 2023 Australian Open draws near and the stage is set for what will happen in Melbourne. When is the Australian Open draw? Australian Open officials have confirmed that the 2023 draw will take place on Thursday, January 12th, local time, with no time set in stone. The 2022 draw took place 1 day later and was conducted by tournament referee Wayne McEwen and tournament director Craig Tiley. The upcoming draw will likely involve Tiley again and take place at Melbourne Park, where the Australian Open is played. The 2023 qualifying draw will take place on Sunday, January 8th. How does the Australian Open draw work? The Australian Open draws function similarly to those of all other Grand Slam competitions. To ensure they can't face each other until the championship match, unseeded players are randomly distributed throughout the bracket with the 2 top-ranked opponents at opposite ends. The schedule for the entire first round of matches, as well as the entire tournament, is then determined by drawing names at random from a pot of the remaining seeded players. Additionally, the format is skewed to keep all seeded competitors apart until at least the third round. When is the Australian Open 2023? The Australian Open 2023 main draw will start on Monday, January 16th, with the start of the men's and women's singles. It will conclude on Sunday, January 29th, with the men's singles final, with the women's singles final played the night before. Qualifying for the Australian Open main draw will start on Monday, January 9th, and wind up on Thursday, January 12th. 2023 Men's Australian Open, event schedule and top seeds discussed. The full list of entrants for the Australian Open 2023 has been out for a while now. But since the tournament is still several weeks away, not everyone has taken a look at the list or checked out the dates or schedule. In case this describes you, let me provide a few specifics for these categories right now. Key dates. There are two key dates for the Australian Open in January. The first is the start date, which is currently set for Monday, January 16th. The second of these key dates is the date of the men's finals, which is set for Sunday, January 29th. Between these dates, you've got a ton of top-level tennis to tune in for. Schedule for the two-week event. As you can see from the key dates shared above, this is a two-week tournament. This is the case for all of the Grand Slam tournaments on the ATP Tour. So really, the event itself is split into 2 weeks of tennis. The first week, which runs from Monday the 16th to Sunday the 22nd, will host rounds 1, 2, and 3, as well as a range of round 4 matches. Once the second week of the tournament begins, which is on Monday the 23rd, this is when the remaining round 4 matches will be concluded. Throughout this week, you can also tune in for the quarterfinals and semifinals, as well as the finals on Sunday the 26th. Top 5 seeds for the men's tournament. The seedings for the 2023 Australian Open has been done in line with the ATP rankings at the time of entry. Because of that, I confirm that the top 5 seeds for the tournament are as follows: Carlos Alcaraz, Rafael Nadal, Casper Ruud, Stefanos Tsitsipas, Novak Djokovic. To quickly clarify, this seeding means that Alcaraz and Nadal will be placed on opposite sides of the draw. It also means that Ruud and Tsitsipas will be split into the top and bottom halves as well. Novak Djokovic confirmed he has received a visa to travel to Melbourne to play in the 2023 Australian Open after missing this year's tournament when he was deported over his vaccine status. "I was very happy to receive the news yesterday," the Serbian said after beating Andrei Rublev in the ATP finals. "It was a relief knowing what I and the people closest to me in my life have been through this year with what happened in Australia and post-Australia. I could not receive better news for sure during this tournament as well." Australia's Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles, said Thursday he personally intervened in a visa decision that opened the door for Djokovic amid a significant easing in pandemic restrictions since he was deported in January. Since the cancellation of Mr. Djokovic's visa in January 2022, all COVID-19 related Australian border restrictions have been removed, including the requirement to provide evidence of COVID-19 vaccination status to enter Australia, he said it in a statement. Mr. Djokovic has subsequently been granted a temporary visa to enter Australia. If you want to watch more amazing videos like this, kindly subscribe and click the like button to become part of our family.